If math homework is brutal in your household, if you're dealing with things like crying during math homework, yelling during math homework, your kid flat out refusing to do their math homework, saying that they don't have math homework and then later realizing that they did and instead they took the zero instead of doing their work at home, this video is for you. Because math homework sucks. It can suck at home. There's some reasons why your child is struggling, why you are struggling, and there are some things that you can do about it. And so we're going to go through those solutions together today. We're going to go through the reasons why math homework is sucking so bad at home and what you can do about it. So if this is something that you're struggling with, be sure you stick around and be sure that you take some notes. Hi, my name is Zoe. I am your friendly neighborhood online math tutor and educator. I help parents like you get your child the math education they need and deserve, all while making sure that they are building some math confidence and a positive math mindset. Now, let's talk about some things that you might be dealing with if you're having some trouble with your child's math homework at home. Let's talk about background, okay? Because if math homework is a struggle at your house, it might not be just one thing. It might not be that your kid is struggling in math or that they're struggling to get the work done. It could be a combination of things. And so let's talk about why math homework might be sucking at home. And the thing that I want to start with first, and it's a little bit spicy, but keep with me, is that it could be you. It could be you. So if you have math anxiety, if you struggled in math at school or had some adverse experiences with mathematics growing up, you might be tensing up when it comes to the math homework. If you are remembering, flashing back to sitting down at the table with your dad and him quizzing you on your flashcards and then yelling at you when you didn't remember the ones he thought you should remember, this might be affecting the way that you're approaching your kids' math homework. If you're feeling super duper nervous, that can affect how your child is feeling going into that situation. And it's also going to affect your reactions to your child when they start to melt down because you are melting down internally. And so there's some things that we can do about that to help you calm yourself and help your child stay calm when they can. So let's talk about tip number one, regulating yourself before you help your kid regulate themselves. Now, I'm not Dr. Becky. I don't know a lot of parenting stuff. I'm not a psychologist, but I do know quite a bit about math anxiety as a math anxiety sufferer myself. I had some really adverse experiences with math when I was a kid and all the way through college. And I really only started to heal my own math anxiety and math trauma when I learned some of the newer methods of doing math as an educator, and then in turn became an online math educator. And so not everyone's going to go through that journey, right? You are probably not an educator, but you can start to try to heal some of your internal math garbage that you're dealing with. Number one, I want you to tell yourself that none of that was your fault. It is not your fault that you had someone yell at you about your multiplication facts or that you flunked your Algebra 2 class in high school. It was not your fault. You may have not done the work, but you needed some more supports, okay? Also, I want you to recognize that you can improve your math abilities at any age. So, if you are struggling with your own math abilities, just know that you can work on math ability and grow your math ability at any age. But here's what we're going to do right now. We are going to try to notice how we feel when our kid gets math homework and we feel like we can't help with it. It feels really crummy. And instead of coming to ourselves and beating ourselves up, Sam doesn't want you to beat yourself up either, about why we might not remember fifth grade math. We are going to find the resources that will help us help our child, and recognize that it's actually okay and positive for our kids to see us not know something. And so taking stock of the resources that you have on hand and how you can use those resources to help your child, and showing your child how you are using those resources can actually be a net positive when it comes to your kid's math education. Here's what that looks like. Your kid brings home some fifth grade fractions homework, and not only do you not remember how to add mixed numbers or subtract mixed numbers, but you don't recognize the methods that they're using. It doesn't look like anything that you've ever seen before. And so you automatically feel defensive. Your child picks up on the fact that you are freaking out, and then it turns into a whole thing. Instead, what we're going to do, we're going to take a deep breath. We're going to admit that we don't recognize this work with something like, that looks interesting, and I don't remember learning this, but I know that we can figure it out together. Okay, I know we can figure it out together. And then you ask for some time and you let your child see you tap into resources. So you may go on Khan Academy. You may just go on regular Google. You may go to my YouTube site because I have some breakdowns of Common Core math concepts that are pretty common for parents to struggle with. You may go to your child's math textbook, their past homework, notes that the teacher has sent home, and you're going to look at those together with your child. You're going to watch the video. You're going to look at the examples and say, okay, how can we figure this out together? And it's going to show your child that they don't have to automatically know things about the math that they're doing. They can access their resources to problem solve. And then you're going to work on the work together. And if it's something that you really can't figure out together, that's okay. That's going to lead us to the next tip, which is having positive communication with your child's teacher. So say that you get this fraction homework and you cannot figure out how to help your child with it, and you've tapped into all your resources, it's still not working, and you're trying to avoid this spirally thing that happens when your kid is not confident in their math, you're not confident in the math, and you're spiraling, everyone's yelling at each other by the end of the night, and everyone goes to bed angry. You're going to email the teacher and say, we worked on this together. This is how far we got, and we were not sure how to complete the work. Can you please send some additional resources or allow my child to meet with you during class to figure this out? And 9 times out of 10, the teacher's going to be really happy with that communication because they're going to know what your child is struggling with and what they can help with them with in class. And everyone didn't go to bed angry. You kind of left it at the point where you could take it to, and then you're going to figure out the rest later. Maybe it's not your confidence with math that is affecting your child's ability to do their math homework. Maybe they're melting down because they're overwhelmed. So a lot of kids can get overwhelmed by math homework because they look at the amount of problems that they have to do and feel like that's an impossible amount of problems to do. They aren't sure about how to do the math homework, and so they get overwhelmed thinking, I don't know how to do this, and I can't do this, and this is going to take forever. And that overwhelm can really affect how they approach their math homework or whether they decide to do it at all. So for these kids, we have some accommodations that we can use to help them feel a little less overwhelmed and feel more in control and empowered when they're doing their math homework. So the first thing that you might do is you can get their math homework, and I'm looking for some math homework. Hold on. Okay, this is not actual math homework, but it's a sheet of paper. So this is the math homework. It has a bunch of problems on it, and your child is feeling overwhelmed. So what you're going to do, you're going to take your handy pair of scissors and you are going to find a good break between the problems, and you're going to cut it in half or in thirds. Okay, this reduces the amount of problems that are on each page, and then you're going to stack them up even if they're not completely the same size, and staple them. Okay, this is going to reduce the amount of problems your kid is seeing on each page, and then also give them kind of a little bit of satisfaction when they finish one part and move to the next. It's also a good breaking point. So like, hey, once you finish one of these, let's take a break and run around a little bit outside, and then we'll come back to the next page. This also works really well for kids who get overwhelmed on tests. So if your child is a kid who struggles with test anxiety, this could also be a good thing for them to do if their teacher would allow them to do it. Okay, so that's our number one tip. I need to go get another visual for my next tip. Hold on. Great. Here is our next tip, which is to time out breaks. So this is my favorite tool that we use in our house. It is a visual timer. You can see when I move it, it moves to different times, and your kid can actually see how much time is left. So doing something like setting this to 10 minutes and saying, okay, let's do 10 minutes of focused math homework, and then we're going to take a break and then come back to it. And you can even turn on the timer for the break as well. Your child sees how much time they have to work on that work before they're going to get a break. A lot of adults use this at work, like setting a 30-minute visual timer for focused work and then taking a break after and then doing it again. I think it's called the tomato timer method. But for your kid, just picking an amount of time you feel like they can focus on their work. That's going to depend on the kid, and then letting them take a break. You can also encourage them to approach their homework without your help for a certain amount of time before then you come in and answer their questions or help prompt them to what they might need to be doing. So setting even just for like 2 minutes, say, okay, I want you to think about this problem for 2 minutes without me. And then when the timer is up, you can ask me your questions if you have any. I actually use this in tutoring all the time. And I like this too because it makes a fun sound when it goes off. This one's really big and it has magnets on the back, and we keep it on our fridge. Okay, what if none of this is what's hindering your child when it comes to their math homework? What if it's that they're behind and they're struggling with the basic math components, which is making it hard for them to access what they're learning in class? And so when they sit down for math homework, they're just feeling extremely defeated because they haven't mastered their math facts, let alone the more complex things that they are having to learn in class. This is where accommodations are going to come in. Okay. So we want to help your child access the math that they are doing at school and learn those concepts and retain those concepts, even if they haven't mastered some earlier concepts. And sometimes this is harder to do than it sounds. But for example, if your child typically struggles with their multiplication facts and you're working with them on remembering them, but right now they need to learn how to multiply fractions or how to do complex word problems that sometimes involve multiplication, we are going to give them an accommodation to access what they're learning, while not having to spend so much time on figuring out their multiplication facts with little addition and things in the margins. So my biggest tip is to let them use a calculator. Do you like my calculator that I've had for, I don't know, almost 2 decades? Let them use a calculator. So letting them do their math calculations, like the adding and subtracting, multiplying and dividing on the calculator so that they can access the thinking that they're trying to access for their homework, can be a really good way to help them feel less overwhelmed and for their math homework to take less time, because sometimes it's taking way longer than the teacher intended. Obviously, you're going to need to ask your child's math teacher if this is an okay thing for them to do. But I use this accommodation a lot with my math students when they're trying to access it something more higher level, but they're still struggling with those lower level skills. You could also do things like print out a multiplication chart or an addition and subtraction chart that they can reference and kind of keep it in your math homework area. Some kids really enjoy doing that because when they're working and they're in the flow, but they can't quite remember something, they can just kind of glance over, find what they're looking for, and then come back to their work pretty easily. I would suggest not letting them use a phone or iPad or computer calculator unless their work is on the phone or iPad or computer, because that can introduce some distractions that we don't want during math homework, because we're trying to stay focused, right? Another thing that you can do for your kid who is just struggling with their math work is for the kid who looks at the math problem and is like, I don't know what to do, especially with word problems. Okay. So let's take the example of a word problem that deals with decimals. So you may have a word problem that says something like, Johnny has $75.32, and he wants to split that money between 3 jars in his bedroom. How much money does he need to put in each jar? And your child may look at this problem and say, I don't even know where to start with that. I don't know what to do, because they're overwhelmed by the more complex number. And so there's something we mathematicians like to do when we're solving math problems, which is take the smaller case. And so instead of just kind of letting your kids sit there and spin their wheels on how to do this, you can replace the more complicated number with a simple number. So you might replace that dollar amount with $21 and say, okay, draw out your 3 jars. What are you going to do to split this $21 into those 3 jars? Oh, we're going to divide. Okay, so now we know what operation we need to use to solve this problem and answer the question. Now we're going to reintroduce the more complicated number. And then you may draw that out, that dollar amount out, or your child may then know that they need to divide that more complicated number. This is just one example of being able to take the smaller case. So you may do something like cut out little tiny pieces of Post-it note and stick it over the numbers and write more simple numbers there. You may copy the homework and scratch out the numbers and write the more simple numbers there. Anything to help your child access that thinking that they need to do in order to solve the problem, and then marrying that with the more complicated numbers. This all helps kids feel like they can access the math work and not feel so overwhelmed. Okay, I have a spicy bonus tip for you, which is that sometimes your kid is just overwhelmed with the amount of math homework no matter what you do. And it's taking longer than you intended. It's ending in tears. It's causing like this crazy whirlwind of like bad math vibes. Okay. And your kid is just getting beat down, feeling like they're not good at the math that they're being given. And it's causing like real problems in your house. Something that you could do is reach out to your kid's math teacher and explain what's been going on. Say like, hey, we're trying, this is what's going on at home, this is what we're struggling with, and then make an ask. Say, can we reduce the amount of homework problems that they're getting just to the essential ones? Or can we get a little extension on the math homework to give us a little more flexibility to get it all done? Or is there some way that I should be helping my kid that I don't know about, or that we could be doing for my kid that would help them feel more confident with the math homework? And see what their teacher says. A lot of teachers are really glad when parents reach out and are being involved in their kids' math education. They are not going to scold you. More likely than not. I can't attest to all the math teachers in the world, but it's worth a shot. And you can find some good prompts on how to email your child's teacher at some of the resources below. And if you need help kind of thinking through that, you can always leave a comment, because I always respond to comments. But that's another thing you might consider if your child is really, really struggling with their math homework, along with maybe reaching out to a math tutor like me to help ease some of that burden and help your child build up their math confidence while also doing their math homework um, with someone who's not their parent, who is a math educator or expert. It can sometimes relieve some of that pressure from the family. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out this one where I talk some tips on multiplication specifically. And be sure to like and subscribe and turn on those alerts so you don't miss any tips or any of the STEAM activities that I like to post here that you can do with your child to foster a love of math learning. I will see you in the next video.